Our first speaker is Mark Walsh. He's an angel investor and a venture investor. I'm going to let him tell you about this Tandem Product Academy. It's really focused on helping technology product entrepreneurs in the greater Washington area. He is the chair and CEO of Fact Squared. It's a company that basically turns any unstructured data into structured data and makes meaning out of that. And it's formerly the head of the Investment and Innovations Division of the U.S. Small Business Administration, where he ran the SBIC and the SBIR programs. Before that, among other positions, he held leaderships at HBO, GE, and AOL. He's got a lot of good things to talk about. Mark?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. See a lot of friendly faces and familiar faces in the room. How come I get older and none of you do? That's what's sort of starting to piss me off. Thanks for a few minutes today to describe an effort that I am part of. The genesis of this effort is from Jonathan Aberman, many of whom you know. And he and I, and actually a number of people in this room, have worked to put together this Tandem Product Academy. But before I start, I was watching on ESPN 30 for 30 last night about the 2004 Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees ALCS Championship Series. For those of you who've forgotten, the Yankees went up 3-0. No team in Major League Baseball had ever lost a 3-0 advantage in a 7-game series. And the Red Sox came back and won their first World Series in 85 years. And the theme of the Red Sox team that year, as they focused on going all the way, was the phrase, "Why not us? Why not us?" And I was thinking about that in the Washington area, because in my time in government and in other arenas that I spent some time in, I was reminded of how many things that matter in our lives, not just technological things, but things that matter in our lives, have come from the DC area. For instance, about 60% of the services and products and elements of this device that almost all of us have in our pocket come from government invention and government investment in the SBIR program that was mentioned earlier. But then again, I saw the data, and my predecessors at the SBA, Javier Sade and Sean Green, whom some of you may know, we saw incredible data that indicated that about 66% of all venture capital comes from and goes to 25 zip codes. Those zip codes start with 9, California, 0, Boston, and 1, New York. Nowhere near enough of those dollars come to zip codes that start with 2. And I said to myself, why not us? What are we, Xerox Park around here? When you think about it, the Washington area has led in so many things that matter. The long-distance revolution was started right here in the DC area, MCI. The cryptocurrency revolution was started right here in the DC area with Cybercash. The interactive services area was started right here in the DC area with AOL. God damn it, we started the goddamn internet. So why not us? Why are dollars going elsewhere? Companies that are being celebrated, located elsewhere, when in fact a $4 trillion customer called the United States government is in our own backyard, and so much innovation is happening each and every single day. Why? Because the rest of this nation, and sadly the rest of the world, often thinks of us as beltway bandits, a term I hate. We are not bandits. We are not just the beltway. We are a source of innovation for technologies, for products, for companies, for people, for outcomes, for services that make a difference not just in the DMV, but around the world. So with Jonathan's help and a bunch of others, folks like myself that are volunteering as teachers or mentors or instructors, we have put together Tandem Product Academy. The details, and I'll get out of your hair and let the more entertaining folks grab the podium. I love them both. It's free to companies. Free. There's no equity give out, nothing. No, it's non-dilutive. We're looking for about 25 companies, most of which will have gone past formation stage and potentially raised more money than just their buddies, their parents, and their spouses. It'll be a 4-month program. It'll be in this region. We'll have meeting spaces around the region with about 20, as I mentioned, 20 instructors, some of whom are in this room, many of whom you will know. There'll be a little graduation. And the Tandem Product Academy is one of many elements that I would suggest are about why not us. I know there are folks in this room that do similar things to Tandem Product Academy, and I am not suggesting at all it is a zero-sum game, because it is not. What happened in zip codes that start with 9, 0, and 1 was, as a former president once said, 1,000 flowers bloomed. We are trying to be one of those flowers, to show young or even older men and women with companies that provide services or products that may have government customers or not, that are looking to accelerate their capacity as managers to grow, to raise funds, to hire the right people, to expand their product line, to raise more money, maybe go public, maybe get sold. But these are the types of issues, these are the types of entities, and these are the types of technologies that are crying out for the types of services and folks that are in this room providing the training I'm talking about, and also for our new Tandem Product Academy. If you want to learn more, there's a website, strangely enough, Tandem Innovate, T-A-N-D-E-M, tandeminnovate.com, where you'll see more information about Tandem Product Academy. If any of you have any questions or thoughts, concerns, or suggestions about why the zip codes that start with 2 should be the dominant ones going forward, please tell Jonathan Aberman or anyone you see linked to the Tandem Product Academy. I want to thank Tien and the team for letting me speak today, and let me finish with this. Why not us? Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mark. And now for our featured, Don and Glenn, come on up and have a seat. And I want to bring up Andy Tucker, who's a partner at Womble. And Andy runs their VC and tech practice and will tell us a little bit about what he's up to and introduce our 2 featured guests. Andy?
Yep.
Thank you.
Hey, a pleasure to be here again on this morning. I don't know if I can keep the energy that Mark got in the room, so I'm going to try to keep my introduction short, because our rockstar CEOs will have all the energy going. And for the next hour, a little bit less, but with questions and all that, it's a time to kind of put away your cell phones and learn the lessons, all those devices, pay attention to what's going on, be in the moment. You can text back to people after this is over with. Womble Bond Dickinson, we're about 1,000 lawyer law firm headquartered in the US and the UK. I run the venture practice here in DC. We've got a lot of different transactions. One of our clients, Searcher Price, is presenting here later today. So we're proud to be part of CONNECTpreneur, proud to be part of the ecosystem. And as Tammy Howie was saying earlier, even the lawyers don't view this area as a zero-sum game. We're all in this together, and if we all grow everything, it works for everybody in the system. So that's kind of our view on the world, our view on the market, and we're proud to be part of it. My job here today is to introduce our rockstar CEOs. Don Berger, CEO and founder of Social Tables, one of the leading event planning software companies in the country, maybe the world. I know, Don, are you taking global credit these days?
I'll take it.
Okay. The one thing I found interesting in Don's bio is Don's a graduate of Hunter College up in New York, which is probably not considered an MIT or Stanford kind of level school. So, and I can say that because my father is an alumni of Hunter College, but probably just a couple years ahead of you. But he has his MBA from Georgetown, where I went to law school. Don's won more awards than I can list. I didn't see an Oscar or an Emmy, but I'm sure those are coming in the next couple years. And Glen Hellman. Glen was our #1 angel investor, according to Tech Cocktails, which I guess then says it's fake news, so I don't know. I guess we're going to go on that whole fake news theme this morning. But Glen's been around the Washington area tutoring CEOs and helping them grow, and has been part of this for probably more years than any of us would like to care to admit, but gives them lots of good stories, a lot of great insights, a lot of things for people to learn from, which is why, again, I'm glad all the phones are, Mark's got his phone out. Put your phone away. Just because you think you know this, you'll learn something new. So you turn them off and put them down, flip them over. No, we don't want any messages popping up. You can't check your text during your own speech. So I will turn it over to Don and to Glenn, and I'm not sure how they're moderating. I think you guys are just talking amongst yourselves. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Andy.
Thank you. So Don, this is probably the first time we've been together since our last board, since I last sat on your board, probably 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's been roses ever since.
True. So let me replay to you and to the audience how we first met. I was at a DC Tech meetup. The date was April 5th, 2011. I had put out a tweet that the Dingman Angels was looking for good companies to possibly invest, and I received this tweet back. Hey, let's try to connect at the end of the meetup. It said Dan Berger. I was later to find out that Dan, D-A-N, is Don Berger. And we then met at a Starbucks. Can you tell us a little bit about that? A week later, we're at Starbucks, you, your partner, and what did we talk about?
Sure. And first of all, Happy New Year to you and to everybody else observing the Jewish Happy New Year, or Jewish New Year. So DC Tech at that time, just for context, I think was less than 100 people at a time. Today it's 1,000 with a wait list. And I reached out, you were kind enough to respond. I think also at that time, Twitter was not as noisy as it is today. So I was able to find some signals through the noise. We met up at a Starbucks, I believe, in Maryland. I want to say like Bethesda. And I actually remember it very clearly. It's on a corner. And I think I was late. And I walked in with my co-founder, and the reason I had set up that meeting is because my co-founder had given me an ultimatum. He said, I'll quit my job when we raise money, which is something I'm sure many of you have heard before. That was my immediate number one action item. So I met up with you to try to raise money, and I asked you for a check.
And I think I had some feedback for you a week later, or later on the phone. We talked. Do you remember what I said?
You said, I'll only take you seriously when you quit your job.
And I think I also had some questions about the bozo who you showed up with.
Bozo's still on the cap table.
Is he on the management team?
He's on. He's still on the cap table. Diluted extensively. Yeah. So you said I don't like the guy you're partnered with, and I don't like the fact you have a job. So once those two things are resolved, I'll be more interested in talking to you.
And then a week later, I got a call.
I quit my job and I fired my co-founder.
And I figured I adopted a son. So I think I helped you go to the Dingman Angels and sponsored you.
Yeah, and I got to say, the Dingman Center for Entrepreneurship has been, without a doubt, the number one source of value for social tables and probably forever, but specifically in that first couple of years. What I found was critical in going to these angel groups is getting the support of, I should say, super connectors within the group, and you were one of those folks. So having your support ahead of the angel group was critical because that got me support behind closed doors. So oftentimes entrepreneurs go to these angel groups and they don't really get a chance to meet the people they're pitching, and I was lucky enough to have met you prior. So I had your support and commitment, and then you were able to help me gather support in the group. And we walked in trying to raise $250,000, and we ended up oversubscribing to 500.
Right, I remember that. And so then you were off. You started running.
Yeah, and that started a pattern. Pretty much every summer until 2 years ago, we raised a round. So.
And then I used to run this startup peer advisory group. You remember? And I remember that one session we spent a lot about company culture. And you talked about one of your employees who frustrated you, and I remember this: excellent skills, excellent technician, but you had an issue with it. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think, so, gentlemen, I remember, I think you know what you're talking about. Every answer he gave was started with no.
Kind of like Scotty on Star Trek.
just
I'm
like
doing the best I
Scotty.
can, Captain. The engine's about to blow as it
About
is.
5% of the audience knows what you're talking about, Glenn. So yeah, I mean, it was he was a pain in my neck, and he would always say no. So we kind of came up with this exercise where you can't really measure what you haven't defined, right? So we decided to define the culture, and that started kind of version 1 of our culture. And since then, we've been through 3 iterations of our culture and our values, so to speak.
So one of the things I learned from you, and one of the things when you went back to your group and distilled who are we as a group at that time, one cultural trait stood out, and I write about it all the time. Do you remember what that was?
It's always say yes if, not no because.
Yeah, I think you kind of, on your blog post, you just called "We're a yes if."
Yeah, well, right, we have like 4 words. It says no because, and that's crossed out, and then it says yes if below that.
Very good.
So,
And how did you take that and personify that in the company?
I refuse to hear the word no.
Great.
And by the way, to this day, that's the case. I mean, if anybody, the word no is a trigger for me. Because I'm Israeli, I'm a New Yorker, I'm Jewish. Like I don't do well with that word.
Okay, which is a good segue, because that's
To what?
to what the next question. One of the reasons I stroked a check for you was I didn't.
By the way, for the record, you were one of the. Why didn't you write a bigger check? Because I think you wrote a $10,000 check, Glenn.
I wrote 2 checks.
You did follow. You followed up?
Yeah, I think I'm in for 25. I've written bigger checks for worse companies.
Why didn't you write a bigger check, Glenn?
So you know what? I got to say, I didn't believe in the idea. I believed in you.
Okay.
When you came back with me and said, I no longer have a day job. This is my job.
Yeah.
And you showed me how committed you were, and I felt that you had this grit, this power. Where does that come from? Tell me a little bit about who you are. Tell me how you grew up. Where'd you grow up?
Sure. Wait, I just want to clarify. So am I a charity case? Is that? Am I a startup charity case for you?
Well, so no, I invested because I believed in you, but I got Nancy to co-invest with me because she felt it was my fault you were out of work.
So you were guilted into investing in a charity case. All right.
So half of
Got
that,
it.
half of
All
what
right,
we
now
wrote.
we can talk about childhood trauma. By the way, I do forward my investor updates to Nancy.
No, I do not.
She, as an investor, she has information rights.
She's not it. She just says
trusts-
she says, how are we doing?
There's somebody else in the room whose wife actually, his former wife, made him not invest in my company. So, I guess the moral of the story is trust your gut, don't trust your significant other.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the question?
Let's talk about where'd
Yeah.
you grow up?
I grew up in Tel Aviv, Israel.
Okay, and how long were you there?
I was there until I was 9 years old.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your parents, your upbringing, things like that.
So I have 3 sets of parents. I'm biological because I'm adopted, adoptive because I'm adopted, and then step because both my adoptive parents divorced.
Okay, and so why did you guys leave Tel Aviv?
My mom fell in love with an American man.
Okay, so how did that play in any of your?
Yeah, I mean, so my mom was a social worker. She raised me as a single mom for the first decade of my life or so, and she drove a secondhand old Volkswagen Beetle from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is essentially like the distance to Herndon and back every day to go teach, and we grew up with my grandparents for a long time. And there was one thing that my mom kind of always told me, and to this day it's a core value within social tables, and that's every day is a school day, or she said in Hebrew, Kol ha'chaim bet sefer, which means literally all of life is a school, and that kind of stuck with me. So whenever she made a mistake, whenever I made a mistake, she said that, and to this day it's a core value in the company, which makes me so happy because the fabric of my upbringing is a part of my company, and that I think is the one thread that's kind of stayed throughout my kind of career. And making a learning opportunity out of anything. So the way that, by the way, the way that manifests itself in the business is that every employee has an education fund. They get $2,000. We have 115 employees. They get $2,000. And interestingly enough, most employees actually don't use it. Only about 25% of employees use it. And they don't use the whole thing. But it's there. And some of it's on managers, right, to encourage them to use it. But they get $2,000 to spend on whatever they want for continued education.
So at 9, you moved.
At 9, we moved, yeah, to the Bronx.
And was that culture shock? Tell me
Oh
a
my
little bit
God.
about that.
So I kind of, I'm 36, and the last year has been kind of a time where I've really explored my childhood traumas, because for anybody who knows anything about childhood psychology, like, everything before 12 is what really impacts you as an adult. And I would say that there were 3 major traumas in my life. Adoption, divorce, my parents' divorce, and immigration. And all happened before I was 9. So, yeah, I mean, moving to the United States, not speaking a word of English, was an incredibly traumatic experience. I went from a kid who was somewhat popular in school with a clubhouse and a group of friends to a country where I didn't speak the language, a community I didn't know anybody in, and it was really difficult. And I would actually credit that social anxiety that I had at a young age to fall in love with computers, because computers were an escape for me. So, everybody likes to talk about the internet, how old they are. Well, I was around before the internet when I had a BBS. I ran a BBS. I was on news groups. I was building computers and playing video games and going on IRC. So doing all these super old school things on computers, and that's how I got into computers. Building them, then programming them, and developing websites. So that was my escape.
So it's,
And that, by the way, developed social anxiety that helped create social tables, which we can talk about later, but that was a key part of it.
well, I know you once pointed out to me that a large majority of entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs, are immigrants.
Yeah, it's not, I didn't come up with that, I think it's like factual.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but you're the one who taught me.
Yeah.
So, and I looked into that, and when you look at sort of successful entrepreneurs, all of them have some kind of trauma. Do you believe you have, I mean, what I saw in you was a certain amount of grit. Do you think getting through those 3 amounts of, those 3 defining events created this Don who will just walk through walls?
I think it certainly hardens you. Yes.
And I want to give an example of the culture that sort of the person you are and how it manifests itself in the culture of social tables. I remember we had.
Can I just follow up just at that point?
Sure.
I think for me, what that's made me value in employees is effort. So I'm such a sucker for effort, and now I call my co-founder Trevor Lynn, who's been with employee number 1. I just got him business cards that say co-founder for his 6th year anniversary of the company, and he actually says it's a bias I have. So I'm biased towards people who put an over-index on effort. So for example, we've had applicants write cover letters to my dog, do YouTube videos, make decision trees of why we should hire them, and so on. And I'm a total sucker for that. And that's not always been a predictor of high performance. But if people don't try, then I have no interest in.
So I remember a board meeting.
Is this about my salary?
I remember those too. I'm probably what was one of our most constant arguments, probably the only boardroom this has ever taken place. What did we argue about?
My salary.
Because it was too,
It's too high. No,
your salary was too low.
I was making 0 for the first 2 years, and then I was making 32,000.
And I didn't think you were taking enough money, and I thought it made the books.
So we had a board vote,
Yeah,
and I voted against increasing my salary.
yes.
It's like I'm on the record for not getting an increase.
Right. No, it was more about the snowstorm. You remember the snowstorm? We had a board meeting that was set up a year in advance, and I had a busy schedule, so I blocked that out.
Sure.
Day before, we had about a foot of snow. One of the board members wrote a note saying, I can't make the meeting, I'm not coming in. I said, if we don't have the meeting, we can't have a meeting this quarter. We had the meeting. I remember coming in, you were there. How many people from social tables were in that office that day?
I think it was 100% attendance.
You guys were up and running. I just found that amazing. What do you think drives that?
So I think a big part of it is modeling behavior, signaling, and all that kind of managerial stuff. But I think a big part of it is the kind of people we hire. If you're not interested in working, like during the foot of snow, you're probably not the right person. Of course, look, there's mitigating circumstances, right? You got kids. So this is why cultures have to evolve. Okay, at that time, our average age was probably 24. Today, it's 29. We didn't have any. Now I do this kind of test where I look at my executive team and I count not just the head count of the executive team, I count the head count of the household. And so let's say somebody's got 2 kids and a wife, that's 4 people. And I look at the total number of household head count. And that's telling of how much experience I think that the team has to a certain extent. Back then, the executive team were young. They were not married, no kids. So it's a very different dynamic. And that's why it's really important for companies to evolve and change their culture. Because, again, back then, one of our cultural pillars was work all day, party all night. No, ship all day, party all night. And that's not something that attracts somebody with 20 years experience. So we had to make that change. So yes, at that time, I have no problem with everybody showing up to work on a snowstorm. Today, there's many reasons why you can't, and it's totally fine.
Good. That's great.
So I've evolved my thinking on that,
Okay.
but I still keep a roll call in my head.
So, you've been doing some traveling.
Slightly, yeah.
You and I were a day ahead of each other in Iceland last week or
We
2
were.
weeks ago.
By the way, Iceland sounds really good on paper because it's cheap to get there. But once you get there,
$350 flight, $350
you know, I got a
hamburger.
speeding ticket. I got a speeding ticket in Iceland.
On the cameras,
No, a cop stopped me. You know how much it was?
I give up.
$800.
That's 2 hamburgers.
That's right. But you know how I paid for it? The cops had a credit card machine. I swear to God. And they gave me 20% off because I paid on the spot. It was amazing.
I was thinking about the Israel trip, though.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you're going to Israel on Friday.
I am.
Do you know what Jewish year it is? You know what number it is? You know what,
I have no idea. You know
they're going to ask you this when you get to the border.
So the only Hebrew I know is I think
I don't think it's appropriate to say the Hebrew you know right now, but
Yesh li glida hitova. I have the
good
best
ice
ice cream.
say that to the border agent.
Yeah, I was in Israel in '73, and the other thing I learned in '73 when I was 16. I can't do the math. Was ani sudu falach motek. I'm burning for you, baby. But
Nancy's gonna
this
love that.
this isn't going to help me in Israel. You had a special event in Israel. Didn't you have a reunion?
I did. Yeah,
Can we talk about that?
sure.
Tell me.
So, part of kind of my last year journey has been addressing some of the traumas I discussed, and one of them is adoption, and the way to address that, in my opinion, is to find out who your biological parents are. So, late last year, I did 3 different DNA tests. I had 23andMe, Ancestry, and MyHeritage, basically for techies, for Mormons, and for Jews. That's so I covered the gamut, and I got the results back. Somebody was relating to this story. So I got the results back, and usually, if anybody who's here done a DNA test, okay, so about 10% of you, and most of the time when you get DNA results, it's like, oh, you have a 2% cousin, you might exchange a couple messages, and there's nothing important. I found a 13% match, which is a first cousin. And so I reached out to the guy. This is hilarious. I'm in a group with somebody who's got very strong genealogy experience, and he was able to find the number of this individual. So on a Friday night, I called my first cousin, and I said, "Hey, I'm your cousin," and he said to me, "If you want to know how mom's cooking tasted, you can fuck off. But if you have a check to write me, we can keep talking." And I said, "Okay, this guy's related to me." So we built a relationship.
How much did that cost?
We built a relationship. He's a pretty cynical person, so it took a little while to convince him that I was legit. But then he logged in, he saw, and then he gave me two options. He said, either this is your dad, and it's from my dad's side, or this is your mom, and it's from my mom's side. So I felt stronger that I found my dad, not my mom, because obviously he's a connection to one of them. You don't know what, because the DNA test doesn't tell you. So I reached out to this person. He died. I talked to his widow. I'm like, oh my God, you won't believe it. Your former husband, your late husband, is my dad. She's like, oh my God, that's beautiful. That makes so much sense. He had so many relationships. and then not with Paul. Still,
He might have been the guy who taught me Yesh Glida
yeah, he's the same guy. But so yeah, but not while they were dating. And then at the same time, I triangulated some more information from the adoption agency, who they don't give you information, they only tell you like a couple of things. And then I was like, oh crap, I screwed up. Actually, this is not my dad. The woman who my cousin originally said was actually my mom. So I had to call the woman and apologize to her. And I had like photos of his tombstone, because it's amazing actually what you can find online. You can find photos of every tombstone in the world. It's really incredible. So, and I was like, tell me about him. Oh God, he sounds just like me. And then I ended up figuring out it was actually my mom. So I got in touch with her, and we met for the first time in April.
Emotional?
The internet takes a little bit away from emotions these days, because you can FaceTime and you can talk and stuff. So yeah, it was emotional, for sure. But it's so obvious she's my mom. Like, we both have really bad bunions. We have the same laugh. Just some qualities are very similar. Our temperament is similar, and I met my 4 siblings.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And how's your relationship with your adopted mom back in New York?
Stronger than ever. Yeah. She didn't take. I think she was a little concerned what I was doing in the beginning.
Really?
Because I think I never adopted anybody, but with my dog. But I would assume that, it's somewhat slighting to her, slightful, because she's like the mom, and then you go find another mom, and they have another mom to build a relationship with.
So how's the company doing now?
Oh wow, what a great transition. The company's doing really good. Our numbers are public because the Washington Post covered it. We'll finish the year right around between 18 to 20 million in recurring revenue. We'll be profitable in Q1.
Wow, that's quite an establishment. When did you start?
2011.
Okay, tell me about the management team.
The management team is kind of on, this is going through transformation this year. We just brought on board a new HR person who's absolutely phenomenal from Dr. First, Anna Fryman. We brought in a chief revenue officer from Front Point Securities, John Hanula. He started 6 months, both of them started in the last kind of 2 quarters. Trevor Lynn is still going strong. He's now not running marketing, but also running product. Kristen Zeitler, my chief of staff, who runs operations, and Miley Chang, who's my VP of finance. And then we have an opening for a VP of engineering.
So pretty strong team, because you seem to be doing some traveling. You're able to leave the office.
Yeah, I would say over the last year, I've definitely not overworked myself. Like I check out. Like, I don't even work on weekends sometimes.
And how often do you check in? Like when you were in Iceland?
Daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Text all the time?
Yeah, if you pay $5 to Verizon, you get unlimited voice and text. You get your same plan abroad. So, travel pass. Great.
So you don't travel, you don't leave the company behind yet?
No, I don't. I don't. I think my team, I don't think my team's ready for that yet, quite frankly.
Okay. Future plans for the company, any new products, anything changing, anything we should know?
So people who don't know what we do, maybe it's a good idea to just talk about that real quick. We have 5,000 customers worldwide. We serve the hospitality industry. We're in the group business, which is about 40% of all hospitality revenue. And that pretty much means everything, whenever you book a group of sleeping rooms, or a meeting space, our software is used to manage that, the sales and marketing aspect of it, but also the operations and execution of it. So, for example, we've been used over the past 5 years, about 4.5 million events have been used to plan have been planned in our software, about 100,000 a month, roughly. Everything from the papal visits to LeBron James's wedding has been in our software. We have 95% of all venues in DC use us, and about 35% of all hotels in North America use us. And again, like anything with meeting space, we help you sell and market it, and we help you operate the event. And then we're now getting more into the group side. So if you're trying to reserve like 10 rooms in a hotel, we'll help you get that.
How different is the company from your original vision?
It's still the same thing because we're all about making face-to-face connections more powerful. So, look, all of you took the time, and I'm grateful for you spending the time here today. And your goal was, you all had an objective in mind, whether it's to network or learn something or sell something. And an event is not successful unless each of your objectives is achieved. And we think that technology can help achieve those objectives, no matter what they are. And the reality is that 10 years ago, each of us spent 2.9 hours per day on a digital device. Today, it's 5.9 hours. So, it's almost the amount of time we spend in front of computers and cell phones has, grown 250%. And therefore, it's more important than ever that the face-to-face time we have is used in the best possible way. And our software does that. So it's used to design an event, it's used to sell a space, it's used to make sure that the right planners are connecting with the right properties every single time.
But you did a lot of product discovery since the beginning. I mean, the product is totally different than what
The
you
original
pitched me.
product was a simple seating chart.
Right.
But again, those elements are still in the product today. But it's certainly grown. So we went from, a feature to 4 products.
Great.
And now we have a marketplace for finding events with about 13,000 venues. So if you go to socialtables.com/search, you can find venues, visualize them, start planning events in them, and organize great events.
So how long are you going to be doing this?
I'm 36. I'm single. I have no assets. I'm asset light. So a very long time.
So you have no assets?
Well, I mean, on paper.
Okay, you have paper assets, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I have no car, no house.
So this is growing well, things are going well.
Yeah, we'll do 30% this year growth.
30?
With the cost structure in mind, right?
Right. Let's say you move on from this for something happens, you move on from this hopefully as an investor for good reasons.
Yeah.
Do you do it again?
No, I think I want to start a hotel chain.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's opportunistic. I mean, right now, every huge chain is buying small brands. So I think there's a big opportunity to start a boutique brand.
Would you use your software?
But probably not, because it would be a boutique hotel. We serve more convention hotels. So probably not. Well, maybe for booking group, maybe, yeah.
So do you still have this in the
I
office?
do, yeah.
This is my business card. It's a can of whoop ass.
Yeah, I have one. So, Glenn, I figured I'd spend maybe just 60 seconds interviewing you if the crowd doesn't mind.
Okay, sure.
Because it's very rare that we get Glen Hellman, Mr. Cranky himself, to on stage, no holds barred.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So the other day I saw on DC Tech Facebook group that you posted looking for an SEO company to clear your name.
No, actually, it wasn't to clear my name. It was to unclear somebody's name that had been cleared.
Oh.
So for instance, I think this will happen today. If you read my blog today, I speak about a guy who was a CFO of a company which the state of Virginia has found to have fraudulent books, and I do that often. And if I was he, I would hire this firm.
Oh, you were like asking for him.
No, I was asking, so I have a series of blogs about somebody,
Yeah.
a company called Trustify, and where if 2 months ago and they're raising money, yet I don't believe they have any real sources of revenue except for investors. And if you Googled Danny Boyce or Trustify 2 months ago, the whole first 2 pages would be my blogs. If you do it now, it's a bunch of garbage blogs that he has put up, and
So Glenn, let me, I think I get it. Because what I did is after I did that, after I saw you post that, I Googled your name because I was like, what's wrong with Glenn's Google results? And some of the things that come up are all really positive. You know, it's you, it's your blog, it's your Twitter, whatever. So I have a question for you.
yes?
Is clearly, how do you balance, when you make decisions to write about people, how do you balance the truth, or your version of the truth, and hospitality?
So, I've made a decision, this is the reason there's a can of whoop-ass here, that I have a brand, and my brand is to be 100% honest and frank. When I get a tip, and I get tips often, I look at, one, is it punching down? Am I picking on somebody who can't defend themselves, doesn't really, and if the answer is yes, I drop it.
So it's got to be in your weight class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then is it really a horrific thing that people should know because it'll protect them? And if there's yes, it's a no doubt. And if it's no, I say, yeah, but is it funny?
Okay.
Gonna make people laugh, and then the last thing is will I be sued?
Oh,
Can I back what I say up? Because
that's an interesting. Okay, I didn't think about that.
so I
Has anybody
definitely.
threatened you with a lawsuit?
So a year and a half ago, I got a demand letter, which was, do you know the Streisand Effect?
Barbara Streisand?
Yeah, so Streisand had a house that built, and it's a beautiful house, and she wanted it to be secret. And somebody took pictures of it and published it, and she sued him. And the Streisand Effect is that lawsuit brought more attention to it. It had a inverse effect. So I got this demand letter, and the first thing I said is, well, look, I know everything I said is true. I really don't have anything to worry. They're trying to make me spend money. So I said, let's Streisand Effect it. I put up a GoFundMe account. And I raised $3,000 for my legal defense.
Did anybody here give Glenn money for his legal defense?
Some people here did, yes. I raised $3,000. I hired a very good law firm, folks. I'm not going to say, it wasn't Womble, although they were in consideration, but I had a relationship with these guys. And the Washington Business Journal picked it up. I got a lot of press on it. I got a lot of hits on my website. I got some customers I get customers from it.
Is your brand part of your lead gen? Like, is it demand gen? Is it demand generation
It's
for
definitely
business?
demand gen, yeah.
Oh, it
So it is in a way, and it isn't. So
Yeah.
it brings a lot of, it raises the SEO of my blog.
Yeah.
And, I'd say that 60% of the blog posts I do are investigative reporting.
Is that okay?
And it is.
Yeah,
If you look
you know,
at
yeah.
if you look at today's post, there's a guy who runs a charity, who's on the board of a charity, who has been the CFO of a company that has committed fraud, and who's trying to erase in breadcrumbs that he was ever involved in that company. So that's what today's post is. And I think the people who donate to that charity and the other people on the charity should know that.
It's like it's like Trump's charity.
Yeah, well, I don't know. This charity may be a good charity. The guy on the board has some issues that he either needs to stand up to or not. So that, now on that will not drive a lead to me. It drives traffic. It creates better SEO.
Right.
Then I'll do a thoughtful piece on strategy. Yesterday I did one on Robert Cialdini's book, Persuasion, which is an add-on to Influence about neuromarketing and neuroscience. And on the end of those, I always have an opportunity for people to convert
Got it.
and
Yeah, well,
set
I
up
was
a
just
meeting.
curious.
And it works.
Yeah, I was just curious to
Yeah.
give you a chance to.
Yeah.
'Cause you probably don't get a lot of opportunities to.
Yeah, so, and I will say that being a cranky guy, there's probably, you know, I have a base. I hope the base is bigger than 30%. I hope I'm a 70% base guy and the 30% aren't here because it's me. But yeah, definitely, I am.
Between the two of us, I'm surprised anybody's here.
Anybody's here. Yeah, I have made a decision that I'm not going to be a red apple. Most people in my business are red apples and they don't want to make waves.
Yeah.
There are some people who like green apples. I'm the only green apple available. If you like a green apple, come talk to me.
Yeah.
If you want a red apple, there's a bunch of them you
Red
can talk
Delicious
to.
versus Granny Smith.
Yeah,
You're Granny Smith.
Yeah, I'm a little tart.
Okay.
Are we good?
We go.
I think we should bring some questions to
Yes.
the audience. Now, here's the thing. I have 4 of these available to the questioners. I'll hand them out.
You have 5, Glenn.
Well, no, this one belongs to Reagan.
Oh, okay.
So I have 4 for good questions.
Now, people should know what's inside.
So you can use this in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
You can hit a zombie with it if you throw it hard. It's got several usages. It's 47 cents worth of soup.
And it's
I wouldn't
chicken
eat
noodle soup?
it's chicken noodle Safeway. I wouldn't serve it. I'd serve it to the zombie. If the hitting him with the thing doesn't kill him, the soup probably will. And if you open it and clean it out, it becomes a pencil holder too. So
Oh,
it's a
okay.
paperweight, a pencil holder.
Well,
And I'll tell you another story about it that I got.
maybe we should get to audience questions, Glenn.
Now I'm going to tell you the story. I'm sorry. I got a call. This is a marketing lesson. I got a call 3 weeks ago from a guy who wanted to set up a meeting. I had talked to him 5 years ago, and he didn't become a client. But because this is not a regular business card, was sitting on his desk for 5 years. So when he decided he needed a coach, I was top of mind.
Wow.
And he called me, and he's a client. So it's the power of having something besides a standard business card that people will keep and put on their
Only
desk.
problem is you can only carry one at a time.
I brought 5 here today.
Okay.
So questions from the audience, over here.
Hey, guys, this was like really awesome. Just want to say thanks. You guys have a really interesting dynamic. But I actually had a question for you on one of the first things you said, which was this is your 3rd iteration of your culture. And I was kind of curious, like, how do you note your culture? Like, do you have like some sort of Google Doc that you continually update? Kind of talk a little bit about how you describe your culture and how you categorize it.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for the question. You can Google if you go to my Medium page. I have a blueprint for how we did it. So first and foremost, we probably define the word culture. To me, culture is the manifestation of your core values. So you have a set of core values, and then however those are, however they come to life is what your culture is. So when I say iteration of the culture, I'm talking about iteration of core values. And the way to do it, it's a simple blueprint. It depends on the size of the company and the stage, right? So for examul, one of our core values is to be teams or families. And that doesn't really make sense when you have a performance culture and you're trying to maybe get rid of some underperformers. Because you can't fire your brother or your cousin. So we have to remove that core value because it started hurting us. So basically what we did the first time around, we got an entire company into a room and we kind of brainstormed and came up with 5 values. The next one around, we gave everybody a stack of Post-its. They walked into an empty room, put them on a wall. We tried to find some patterns, and we found some patterns. We got 9 values out of that. There were about 200 Post-its. The third time, we actually had a committee doing it. So we put together a committee. They met, they reviewed everything. They ran a process or whatever they chose. It was just employees, individual contributors for the most part. And that's how I came up with the third one. And that was 2 years ago. So generally speaking, kind of check in on it every 18 to 24 months.
Don, I want you to elaborate a little bit. I think most of us in this room will complain about raising venture capital in the DC region. Can you go through that process a little bit? How did you find these DC investors compared to New York or Silicon Valley, and what worked for you and what did not?
Sure. So I would say we probably have investor-wise about 25 investors, both from angels to institutions on our cap table. I would say there's probably three, if I was kind of like tagging the investors, I'd say there's three themes. There is local, so there's DC people. There is industry, which I'll get to in a second. And then there is like brand name. Locally, so the DC region has been really good to me. And I'm one of those people who moved here in 2008 to go to grad school, graduated in 2010. And every day that I walked up and down Georgetown, I said, I can't wait to graduate so I can leave DC. And now fast forward 10 years, I'm still here. And I think DC is literally going through a renaissance. I call DC the Austin of the East Coast. And I love this city, and I love being a part of its tech fabric. And I go back to the angel group. So I think it depends what stage the company is in. Obviously, getting angels was, quite frankly, easy because of the tactic I talked about of building relationships with folks within the angel group prior to going to present to the angel group. We pitched Baltimore Angels. They turned us down. We submitted to Blue. I don't think they ever saw us. But Dingman came through in a big way, like I said. The other thing that we did with Angels in DC is we got people to invest for the first time. So Philip DeFore, Wendy Drake, those are industry people who gave a $5,000, $10,000 check, which relatively speaking in the angel round is a lot of money. I'd say the one trick for raising angel money, it's true for every round, but especially angel, is figuring out what the traction you need is to raise that round. And it's not necessarily revenue. So for an enterprise company, it may be pipeline. For a consumer company, it's probably daily actives. Whatever it is, there's a traction. And I realize I found a hack, I think, in raising money, is that I use media. Because you may recall, like Social Tables was getting a ton of media attention even before we had any money or customers. So I use media as a trick to get people to think that we're doing really well. And I remember on all my traction slides, I was like, look at all these mentions, look at all these articles about us. So it gave investors like Glenn the idea that they'd be missing out if they didn't invest. So the press is actually a really good way to get attention early on. So that's for the first round. And I can go through each round if you'd like in a later date. But bottom line is, and then for the A round, we only had one term sheet. But I somehow thought in my head we had more, and that's what I made our investor Bessemer feel. And they were an $8 million round on a $22 million pre. And I made them think that there are more term sheets out there. Then we got a hospitality technology firm to invest, Thayer. So that was huge. And they wanted in because of Bessemer. So it's just like, it really depends on the round. But I think, so let me just summarize. I'm speaking a lot here. Bottom line is connecting with angel groups early, finding people who are interested in investing but are new to the game, and figuring out whatever your currency is for raising whatever round, depending on what you're good at. For us, it was press. And then it actually became events, how many events we did. Thanks, Terry.
Hi, Jean-Luc Park. Glenn, what's the one question you ask every company and every entrepreneur? And how did Social Tables actually answer that the first time?
The first answer is actually probably stay the same. I want to know why Don was doing this. It wasn't to get rich, and I can vouch that it wasn't to get rich because we had a conversation before he did that A round, where I explained to him he may not ever build a great company that has a large impact on the industry, but he does have an opportunity if he doesn't take that round to have lower risk and be rich. And he chose impact over immediate wealth and took that money, which meant he had to build a better company, a bigger company, and spend a lot more time before he would possibly have an exit.
Yeah, I think we diluted a little too much in the B round. We still have, ample cash on the balance sheet.
Yeah, but it was
But the problem becomes actually when you have a board. I mean, I have a 7-person board. It's only 6 seats filled because the one seat, getting a diversity candidate on the board isn't nearly is very difficult in this region. So we're kind of saving that for a diversity person, and the 6 we have is working okay. But you have 3 different VCs, each one with different timetables, with different assumptions about the business, with different opinions, with different portfolios. Because one thing I've learned is the culture of the VC is so important, you know? So there's just so many different variables that that's why if I was doing it all over again, you know, I might want to start with private equity, because at least with private equity, yeah, sure, they'll kill you in your sleep, but you only have one person, one entity to talk to. It's just a constant, you know, finagling with multiple entities and VCs, different horizons. It gets slightly complicated. Good.
One more over here.
First of all, thank you for all this great, inspiring information.
Maybe just a little closer. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm an immigrant, and I saw Don very, very important in your presentation in your conversation about immigration. So I would like to know your opinion or your experience in why immigration in your personal and professional life have been an influence for us immigrants and for those that are not immigrants in this room.
Where are you from?
I'm from Colombia, South
Excellent.
America.
Yeah, so my position on immigration is very public. I started the Capital Tech Coalition, which is essentially a startup advocacy group. We represent about 600 employees, 33 companies, about $100 million in revenue in total. And you know, we started as a result of writing a letter to the president about the immigration issues and the visa issues. And we're the only tech company in DC to release a diversity report 3 years running. We're going to have one in October, and to actually talk about immigration in our diversity report. And first generation, 1.5 generation like myself. I'm 1.5, I wasn't born here. First generation is you were born here, second, third. And 2/3 of the company are second generation or less. So it's a huge thing for us. We have been unable, we've actually had employees leave because they felt that their visa status was in question by staying at a small company. So they wanted to go to a bigger company where there's more resources for immigration. And it's a shame. I have one employee, my best engineer, he's been with me for 5 years. We have to pay for his school just to kind of find our way to work the system so that he gets a training visa or whatever the hell. And it's such a poor place to spend your time and resources, is trying to find workarounds around visa issues. So yeah, my position on it is very simple. Open the doors, because that's what creates a thriving economy.
And one of the things studies show is that immigrants and people who are learning disabled, Richard Branson, is dyslexic. But if you can get through the system and you've had some disadvantage, you've actually run through a gauntlet. You've proven you have grit. And you also don't get knocked down and stay down. You get back up. You've proven you'll get back up. And so, people who have overcome adversity, and becoming an immigrant or being an immigrant and surviving and thriving is overcoming adversity, shows that you have that kind of grit.
Sir.
I've always been curious about the dilution thing. You mentioned at the beginning, this one guy, we dilute him down to 0 or close. And
2%.
2%. So, if you're seeking investors or angels, how do you address that risk to yourself, I guess?
I don't follow the question. I'm sorry.
Well,
are you asking how do I address the issue there's somebody on the cap table who's not worth their salt?
No. If you're going to angel investment, I've heard of stories, maybe these aren't true or whatever, but where people have had great ideas, they've gone and gotten money, and then they themselves get kicked out of their own company through dilution. So how do you mitigate that, is what I'm asking
Well, I would assume if you're a source of value, you don't get kicked out of your company.
Okay.
But
I might ask that
Yeah.
question a different way, and it's one of the things that you and I had a discussion on, which is how do you reconcile the fact that at one point you had 70% of the company, and if you sold it at 20 million, which there are a lot of companies that can pay 20, 70% of 20 is a lot of money. How do you reconcile
getting a $22 million valuation, bringing $8 million in, knowing that now your exit is going to have to be in excess of $100 million. And the risks that brings in and the dilution means you are less likely to have a financial reward. How'd you make that decision?
I think it's a slightly complex calculus. The first thing you have to figure out is, why you're doing what you're doing. So I'd rather make less money than have a bigger impact. Period. That's the primary, driver. Secondary, you have to believe. You're right. So basically, what Glenn's saying, every time you raise a round, there is less potential exit opportunities because you become more expensive. So when a mom and pop shop could have bought you, now Oracle has to buy you. Right, the two kind of ends of the spectrum. You have to make the calculation that there are opportunities to exit, and have the infrastructure logic in place for potential acquirers. And I firmly believe that there is. So, our market's huge, and I think there are many opportunities. But those are the two things.
My observation
is
the path you took is consistent with the path you took when you said to me, Glenn, I no longer have a partner, and I no longer have a job. It was, you were all in.
Yeah. Probably a good place to end. Glenn and I will be hanging out if you have any more questions. Thank you so much for the invitation.